I get the vibe that you're you're a type of person that doesn't want to jinx anything or put all your eggs in one basket. I feel like it's like, thank you, this has been great, but I'm already moving ahead working on something else. I don't know.
That's true.
What you can say to that? Like, me being excited about the new album, you're probably already looking ahead, but at the same time don't want to get too much hype with it.
Yeah.
Personally.
Yeah, I mean, certainly not for me personally, just because, like, it doesn't, like, that, my brain just doesn't process things that way, but, like, you know, there's certainly, I mean, I'm excited about it. I'm really excited about it. I'm excited for people to hear it. I just want to, like, you know, I really just want to get better is the thing, you know. That's the hardest part about this, I think, is, like, you know, you can reach a certain level and plateau, but I think, like, one of the reasons why, you know, a guy like Jason Isbell maybe was able to make several albums before he caught on and keep people's attention was because he did keep getting better every time. And so that becomes the goal, you know. I feel like the work will never fail you. If you do the work and don't worry about everything else, everything else will kind of come. You know, people will show up to the gigs and you'll have an audience, and, like, you know, you don't worry about all that stuff when you really are focused on just doing the work and writing the songs. And
like, if your intent out of the gate was to attract people before you actually are creating, you've already lost it.
I think so.
Yeah.
I think so, because I think, like, you have to be, you know, you want to be in the moment, you know, and you don't want to, you know, I think all of those great records that we love, like an Otis Redding thing or something like that, was born out of a moment, and was born out of everybody just being present at that second, and that's why there's that kinetic energy to it that draws you in every time you hear it. And that, you know, that's not just the way that I'd like to, like, record or do art or anything. Like, that's the way I'd like to live, ultimately.
Well, it's more authentic. You're not trying to be something that you're not. You're being who you are, but if you keep at that, keep peeling away the layers of yourself, eventually things do stick and people do show up. You know, it's just a matter of just keep doing it. I mean, it's a lot different now. I mean, you got to be out there in the public. I mean, you tour probably as much as anybody I know throughout the year, I would say.
Yeah.
But it's a weird industry right now.
It is.
It's a moving target. It's very hard to find footing, but at the same time, it's amazing, like, how quickly something can get picked up.
It's true.
On its own sometimes.
It's true. I think if you're willing to give it the space to find people, you know, because that's the thing. I think because we are so inundated with music now and there's so many bands out there doing it, I think people feel like they have to push it as hard as they can to get it up the ladder. The truth of the matter is, you know, even though there are more artists out there, the best stuff is still going to rise. And, you know, I think artists like, you know, John Moreland are a great example of that. You know, he's not a dude. Yeah, he's not a dude that's forced anything in his career. He's just let it be what it is, and that's a beautiful way to approach it.
I've always said to people, like, we all have our victories in our own time.
Yeah. Yes.
When you keep comparing yourself to other people, you just become more frustrated.
I agree.
And things happen in their own time, you know. Who knows what's going to happen in a year or 5 years or 10 years or whatever. But with John, especially, it's not forced. It just, the intersection at that time period worked. And now it's pretty wild to see it. I mean, is it weird to see that all these people that you've been with for years are like, it's like I said earlier, it's very hard for me to, like, as much as I'm excited to see everyone getting attention, it's like, what kind of attention is it getting?
Sure. I think that's frustrating sometimes. I mean, you know, I know people who've certainly experienced that, where they've just gotten to a place with their gigs in their hometown where it's caught on enough that people are just coming because they think they're supposed to go.
Yeah.
And they're not understanding the point of being at the show, and they'll talk over the whole thing or whatever, you know, and that can be very frustrating for the people who are there, you know, for you know, to listen. You know, I think that's part of the trade-off, though. You know, every part of doing this, you know, comes with some sort of, you know, like, you know, kind of qualifying run. You know, it's like you have to run the gauntlet every time and prove that you can still survive it.
Well, and then there comes that thing where I've been thinking about a lot lately with a lot of different bands is to evolve and not always give people what they expect you to give them. The idea being, like we were talking about with Sturgill and with Ray LaMontagne, and that everyone says, oh, well, it doesn't sound like his last album, but it's like, well, if it did, then you'd complain that it sounded like the last album. You know what I mean? Like, for you, though, I mean, you're a moving target. I mean, where do you see yourself right now, and where are you going to be moving forward? I mean, I feel like you're in the space you want to be in, but, like, what's left for you that you really want to take down career-wise? Like, I mean, I know you're still coming up the ladder, but I feel like you're in a good space.
Oh, I feel like, yeah. No, I'm very happy, you know. I mean, it's never been my goal to be, you know, the biggest star or the most popular one of anybody or anything like that. So just to be able to be in the world and know, you know, the other people doing it, and to be able to watch them, you know, from the side of the stage sometimes because you're lucky and you get to open for them or whatever. You know, I mean, that's just about all I ever really could hope for. So, you know, anything that happens after this is amazing to me, but I want to take it as far as I can. I mean, I would love to, you know, I'd love to play my own show at the Ryman someday or something like that if I could, but, you know, I'm not, but I won't, but it's not going to kill me if I don't.
Well, it's funny you say that because someone had asked me recently, like, where you are with your career as a journalist, where do you want to go? I said, well, man, you know, the sky's the limit, but at the same time, every day that I get to be in this world is another day that I feel lucky to be in that world.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, it's all very...
I wanted to be here. Now I'm here, and it's like, everything's great, you know? Like,
but that's the
even
thing.
when it sucks, it's still good.
If you can really be present and appreciate it, like, it is great, you know? And I think people, you know, oftentimes in our society today, particularly with, you know, us being able to sort of qualify everything with these numbers, you know, on social media and stuff like that, it's like, you know,
you feel less than because you don't have enough clicks or
I guess, yeah, it's possible to be that way, to feel that way, but I think the real goal is to, you know, not to be involved in that as little as possible, and to be involved in, you know, besting yourself as much as possible. You know, which is, and you know, and it really is, it's besting yourself. It's not, you know, everybody wants to go out there and knock people out, of course, but I think, you know, sometimes there are people that, like, get this mentality of, like, I'm going to go on stage and blow everybody else off the stage, and it's like, well, that's, you know, that's not really the point. Yeah. If you're going up there with that sort of torpedo mentality, like, you're missing the whole point of being on stage with other people, which is to listen.
Yes. And with that said, too, when I was talking to, like, Pat Sweeney about this, we were talking about the idea that everyone nowadays compares themselves to other people because of YouTube clicks or likes or whatever, where actually at the end of the day, it's like, well, did you actually compare yourself to yourself and what you're going to do tomorrow instead of, like, whatever that person was doing? And that ties into with what you're doing because you're only worried about yourself.
Yeah.
And when you're doing that, you're actually getting to where you want to go. If you were to focus that other way, you're going a lot further.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, I think that's true. You need to know where to focus your energy. Yeah. Because energy is expendable, and once it's gone, it's just gone, you know? So you want to make sure that, like, you're choosing to spend your time on things that, you know, that's not a functioning bathroom, actually. You got to use the board. But yeah, you wanna focus in on important stuff that is going to help you ultimately, because there's no use in going out there and doing all the work that it takes to do this, and all the time that you have to commit to do this, and come away going, I haven't moved any further down the field or whatever, whatever analogy you want to use, than I did when I started out. It's like that kind of thing can be very, like heartbreaking, and just, leave you.
You're setting yourself up for failure.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Totally. You're not leaving yourself room for discovery and room to grow, which are the
and a lot of
elements
times,
of continuing.
Some of the best success, however you measure success, monetarily or whatever, personal success, a lot of times that comes from those failures.
Yes.
And a lot of times people don't ever realize that. Where, like for me, if something shitty happens, it's like, well, it feels good that I can experience that emotion.
Yeah.
And also grow from it, rather than looking at it as a block. It's actually something that's going to project you into the next thing or whatever.
I completely agree with that. I mean, there's a lot of elements of Buddhism that I really agree with.
Yes.
But the whole idea of the way in which you can, the whole idea of the fact that you can choose the way in which you relate to your pain is an extremely interesting philosophy of theirs to me. And it's exactly what you're just talking about, which is you can take, pain can be, or sadness or whatever can be very profound if you have the right headspace about it.
It can be art.
Yeah, totally. I think when you have the right headspace about it is when it turns into its best art.
Well, my last question is what I always ask everyone is, what has a life being immersed in music taught you about what it means to be a human being?
Oh man, tons of stuff. I mean, it's taught me that it's taught me that I really don't know anything at all.
But that's where you start learning, is when you finally realize that you don't know anything, that's when you're actually absorbing stuff.
Yeah, man, and it's taught me more than anything, I think, just about humanity and, the fragility of humanity, and what the power of feeling understood for a moment can do for somebody. Whether you're a singer or a music listener, just that moment in the song where you are hearing the words or whatever and feeling like this is my story too. That is, and it's coming from, such a silly place, like somebody, trying to entertain you or whatever.
Well, the Steve Canyon Rangers?
Sure.
So I was interviewing Graham Sharp a couple weeks ago, and he was telling me about how this one song that he wrote, this one woman was just, this got me through my husband's death, and a very intense interaction. And he's like, it's a weird thing, because I just wrote that in my kitchen over a cup of coffee. It just came to me, and now this woman is it's her soundtrack.
Right.
And it was just me dicking around with my notepad and a bunch of really good espresso.
And it can totally be that way, It can totally be that way. I think oftentimes, the same way that, you don't get 1,000 people to show up to your gig by thinking about how to get 1,000 people to show up to your gig, you don't write a profound song about something very personal, that could mean something like that to somebody by thinking about doing that. You just sort of let what naturally comes out come out, and it's that sort of, again, it's the being in the moment thing. It gives it that kinetic energy that connects with people over and over again, and will keep them coming back to the song or the piece of music forever.